Hi, I'm Mark Shepherd. I'm an acupuncturist and body Bristol West Sussex. I've been talking to practitioners around the world, and today I have the pleasure of talking to Bob Wong all the way over in Australia. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Mark. How are you? Good to be
I'm,
here.
it's good to see you. Good to see you. And now, Bob his practice is called the Art of Acupuncture. He's in Brisbane, actually at 36 Riding Road in Hawthorne. And Bob is a sixth generation acupuncturist. And although in Australia, he's actually from the USA. So, so I asked to start off with, in the USA and now you're over in Australia. What took you there?
That's a very interesting story how I got there, Mark. I actually had no interest. I had no interest in going to Australia. Originally I finished my undergraduate degree in economics actually, and my father at the time he wanted me to be a Chinese medicine practitioner
Ah,
because he was a barefoot doctor during the Cultural Revolution, and I actually rebelled. I actually had no interest in Chinese medicine, didn't even want to do it, but I actually had this obsession with kung fu, and my dream at the time was just to study kung fu at the Shaolin Temple and do kung fu full time. So I actually had this plan to move to China and study full time after graduation, which I did. And he said, my father, he said, well, if you're gonna go, just why don't you give Chinese medicine a try? Try it for 3 months, see if you like it. If you don't like it, we never have to have the conversation again because we had been getting into arguments, and he's like always pressuring me, and I always rebelled. And in the end, I said we came to a compromise. I said, okay, great, we'll try for 3 months. I just said, okay, well, this will get him off my back. I never have to listen to it. I just do it for 3 months and never have to do it again. And I actually ended up falling in love with it. I moved to China. I studied at the Guangzhou University of Chinese Medicine just for a short course for 3 months. I was in the 29 department, which is massage therapy, Chinese massage, and I actually fell in love with it. So, and I actually later on realized when I did train kung fu full time, I wasn't actually that good at it. So so I ended up like staying in China. So that 3 months ended up being 8 years in a nutshell. So I tested into the University of Chinese Medicine in Guangzhou, did my training, met my wife. My wife actually happens to be from South Korea, and we both don't like the cold. So I grew up in Chicago. It's so cold and windy. It's just I couldn't stand it anymore. She hates the cold, so we just thought, oh, what's the closest Western country that we can go to that's warm? And just Australia just popped into our heads. We had no kids at the time, so we just bought two one-way tickets, and that was it. Just and we've been here about 7 years, coming on my seventh year in Australia now.
wow. That is super adventurous. That's really cool. And you were, I told her that you were for a while studying kung fu full time.
I was. So I was at the time I was obsessed with this martial art called wushu. So
Uh-huh.
it's a very general term. It's like more like performance martial arts, like kind of like
Hmm.
a combination of gymnastics. Are you familiar with wushu as well?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So they had long fist, southern fist, things like that. And it was more like a performance martial art. And I actually got injured, and I just realized like I was never good at it. So and I'm glad I ended up finding Chinese medicine
Yeah.
from it because I studied full time, and one day the coach, she was actually happened to hurt her back, and I did some toina, I did some acupuncture, did some cupping, and she got injured, and the students were like, oh, you did it before, you studied Chinese medicine, you do it. Oh, you're a doctor. I'm like, I'm not a doctor. She's like, how was you in pain? So she's, oh, just try it. And then I did the treatment, and the next day she's like, actually my back feels great, and she
Yeah.
recovered, and I treated her a couple more times, and she's like, you're way better at this than you ever were at wushu. So she was like, no offense, but yeah, you're actually way better at that. So from then on, I kind of like, because I studied it and my dad did it, but I never really had the confidence. I didn't know if I could do it. Because you know how you see other people do like, oh, that's so amazing. I don't know. I wish I could do that. I don't know if I could do that, but
Yeah.
I guess the situation kind of forced me into it.
Mm.
And I was just fascinated because it made me realize like, oh, if I only studied 3 months, I can actually help somebody with this. Like, imagine if I went all in,
Yeah.
fully commit 100%.
Yeah.
And yeah, after that, I just went all in after that.
Wow. And so a question which is coming to mind just listening to you now is in your conversations is how does the acupuncture Chinese medicine that you're doing compared to the Chinese medicine acupuncture that your dad would be doing?
That's a very good question. No one's ever asked me that, Mark. Actually, my dad grew up in an era where it was the Cultural Revolution era. So he
Yeah,
grew up where it was his. So even though like it is sixth generation, it's like the way they did it was he learned from my grandfather who had patients, but then he never really, because he learned actually more from my uncle than my father, because my grandfather was so busy he never had time. So he actually learned from my uncle, who was kind of like the protege of my grandfather, and they'd have these formulas and things like that. And after I got into Chinese medicine, he'd make me write all these formulas out in Chinese, and and it was more like those are the things he passed down in clinic. I would say they were more herbalists than acupuncturists.
yeah, yeah.
So they passed down a few herbal formulas. Do you guys say herbal formulas or herbal formulas in the UK?
Either will work. Herbal is what we say in the UK. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but either works. Yeah,
So
herbal.
I'll stick with herbal. Everyone says herbal
Yeah, yeah,
in Australia. So,
yeah, yeah,
so I would say they use more herbal formulas, whereas my training was a lot more 29, mostly 29 acupuncture related. So
yeah,
I would say it's changed because I don't use it. I have like a little, the secret book of, secrets,
yeah,
but
yeah.
so-called secrets, but they're not so secret. I mean, especially with the internet nowadays, I wouldn't say
Mm,
there's too many secrets
right.
nowadays. Traditional Chinese culture itself is very conservative. They don't let any modalities leave the family and things like
Yeah,
that. And I grew up in the West, which is the complete opposite of. And you studied with Dr. Tan as well, and Jimmy's our mentor as well. And they're all about, if you have something, share it, make it better, so we can
yes,
all benefit from it. And that's something that I align with a lot more,
yeah,
rather than the secret book and everything. I can
yeah,
show you the book. I don't actually even use a lot of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I would say the only difference between me and other practitioners, I would say, is I grew up around it. I would say
yes,
it's familiarity. I'm a
yes,
lot more familiar with it. So the
yeah,
concepts are a lot more easy to grasp, rather than like, oh, like what is that? Oh yeah, dampness. We talk about dampness at home all the time, or heat all
yes,
the time. I would say in that aspect, it was a bit more easy to understand. But in
yeah,
terms of my day-to-day practice, I wouldn't say it made a massive difference. I would say the two biggest things in my practice that have impacted me the most would be, one would be going to Dr. Tan's workshop,
yeah,
and the other one would be meeting Jimmy Yen, really.
yeah,
So
yeah,
those are like the two biggest influences in my practice.
yeah, yeah. And for those listening that don't know, Dr. Tan who sadly passed away just a few years ago. He uh, developed and popularized a style of distal acupuncture where really a problem can be in one place, but you're treating it somewhere else. Now that is kind of almost like a common theme in some ways with acupuncture, because just because something's going on in the lungs doesn't mean that you'll be putting points on the chest. When people have a pain, they really want you to go where the pain is. Sometimes where the pain is a place you don't want to be putting the needles. You want to put them somewhere else. But you can get fantastic results, and you can get changes in seconds. And
Oh, exactly.
yeah, I mean, I used to get the adverts coming for Dr. Tan courses and think, yeah, right, and not go. But then I stumbled across. I should be talking to you. I stumbled across one of his
Yeah.
some of his work, and I applied it on me, and it was just fantastic. And it was kind of like
Yeah.
what am I doing? And took his
Yeah.
course. So you, and like you say, Jimmy is a total revelation, in many ways across, in terms of how he's developed that himself and taken it from there. So um, also, um, when I'm looking at uh, Facebooks and people are talking about certain conditions, they go, ask Bob. Ask Bob about scalp acupuncture. And so you're getting really quite known for that. So can you tell us a bit about scalp acupuncture and what you might do it for?
Basically, scalp acupuncture is the style that I studied was discovered by Dr. Zhu Mingqing. And he was a doctor. He developed his own scalp acupuncture techniques specifically for neurological disorders, he's mostly known for stroke, and he does a lot of stroke rehabilitation. So his theory is when someone has a stroke, what you want to do is you want to increase blood flow to get to the brain, to get it working, healing as fast as possible. But literally, you can't massage the brain. So he discovered that through the scalp, you can actually, by stimulating the scalp, you can send messages and vibrations to the brain to get blood flow to the area naturally. And he found that when a person had a stroke, within say a day, 2 days, because usually in Western countries, what happens is someone has a stroke, you go into the ER, and then you have to diagnose. So during that time, you have to do a CT, a brain scan, then you have to have a meeting and go over the results. And he found that so much time was being lost because by the time you come with a diagnosis, it's been 38, 48, 68 hours already. I'm sorry, 36, 48 hours. And by then, there's so many brain cells that would have died. They would have lost heaps of function. And he found that when he was doing that in China, that where he would do scalp acupuncture straight away, while the scans were being done, processed, and then they were coming out with the proper diagnosis, he found that the results were much better. The recovery rates were much faster than as you were to do it traditionally in Western countries. So his main thing right now is I believe he's traveling around China right now, just going into all the emergency wards and setting up protocols for those hospitals. And they're implementing it right now. He's basically teaching MDs and neurosurgeons how to do scalp acupuncture in the meantime. And then once you have a diagnosis, you can go, okay, we can go surgery, we can go this route, we can go this medication. So he's kind of slowly integrating it. I myself, I was seeing some stroke patients. Now, mostly, I've had some good success with mild stroke cases. So the longer ones, unfortunately, in Western countries right now, I don't see stroke patients until a year in, 10 years in, 3 months in. And we still get results, but the results aren't as good as when you would see them directly, say like a week in or anything like that, because usually they're in part of rehab. And I think the system itself is great itself. So when you're doing occupational therapy, physical therapy, and you need all that. And I think eventually, hopefully, the systems will combine, because in Asia, there's no divide between Eastern medicine and Western medicine. You just go in. So when I was studying in China, the hospital itself, it was you could pretty much call it an integrated hospital, but they just call it the hospital. You go and you have a broken arm, okay, go to orthopedics. Or if you have a lower back problem, oh, okay, that's a sprain, okay, go to acupuncture. So it's just like any other department in the hospital, just no different than orthopedics or rheumatology or neurology. It's just another, it's like, oh, okay, go over there. So I think hopefully one day that we'll see that in the West as well, but I'm hopeful.
That would be such a great place to be, isn't it? Now, I don't know if I'm making this up, but I heard the expression of, it's called two legs walking. The idea of having the Western and the Chinese medicine working alongside each other, but kind of having the idea that the Western medicine isn't being kind of adapted to be more like Chinese medicine. The Chinese medicine isn't being adapted to be more like Western medicine. Actually using the full strength of both together. As I really think it really work well together, can't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you carry on, Bob.
Oh no, I was just saying, I think the great thing is it's what is that saying they learn in med school? First do no harm.
Yes.
So yeah, Chinese medicine, Eastern medicine, very seldomly do you see side effects.
Yeah.
Usually I tell people the worst thing that can happen is nothing.
Yes. So, yeah. And an interesting thing that with acupuncture is some people can be nervous about needles. And I think that's generally due to their experience of having injections, whereas acupuncture is so different. And people with having acupuncture really enjoy the experience of acupuncture. Right now, with various COVID issues, that's what they're missing. But you must have people come into your clinic going, they're just so pleased to be there for the experience of having it and the deep relaxation as well as the benefits that they get.
Oh, definitely. During COVID, we've been really fortunate in Australia. It didn't hit Australia very hard. I would say at the peak, I'd say it was probably, I think no less than, don't quote me, but I'd say 1,500 cases.
Yeah.
But the deaths have been very, very low.
Yeah.
I work next to my clinic is connected to a health food store, so everyone just came in, bombarded, and raided the immune supplements and just bought everything out.
And it's interesting seeing how different countries have reacted differently, and to be able to stay open and you know, provide that support. I think that must be such a good position to be in. Um, so the other thing about you, well, one of the many, is you were doing the kung fu, but now you're a jiu-jitsu man, as I understand it, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And do you find there's overlaps between the martial arts and the Chinese medicine side of things?
Chinese medicine, we did quite a bit of Tai Chi. We did Qigong and Tai Chi classes. They were actually mandatory when in school in
Yeah,
China, actually. And I think that's one of the main differences between the Eastern medicine and Western medicine is they look at everything holistically rather than,
mm,
okay, you come in, here's a bunch of pills, that's your problem.
yeah,
Here's some physical therapy exercises. It's more of a lifestyle rather
yeah,
than just pills and physio and then okay you're good. Like it's more like okay you've had your acupuncture, you've had your herbs, okay what do you do from here on out? So usually the Chinese doctor will say, oh well, you need to do qigong, you need to do tai chi, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not like
mm,
okay 2-week program you're done. It's like okay this is just something you're gonna do as a part of, and it's since it's part of the culture there's not a lot of pushback. Like okay well if you go to anywhere in China there's hundreds of old people in the morning just doing tai chi like every day, rain snow or shine, they just they just keep doing it. And I think that's why a lot of the older Asian folks are able to have a lot of more longevity. And they actually have there's tons of studies coming out about the benefits of Qigong and Tai Chi as well. The
yeah,
people that have been able to hold off surgeries, even cognitive function balance, Alzheimer's, dementia, really great for the brain because it works your probably, and I'm just making a guess, but I'm sure it's like kind of like a workout for your body and your brain.
yeah.
Sort of like the balance part of the brain, the memory, coordination, cerebellum. There's probably tons of neural connections being built and rebuilt, reinforced every day when you do that, and that's just out of habit. So, in terms of martial arts, I think there's tons of overlap because it's kind of like that's your medicine, that's your
Yeah.
dose for the day.
Completely. And and like you were saying just then about balance and Tai Chi, as people get older, there's the massive fear of falling, and
Yes.
it's the balance is just with Tai Chi, you just learn a whole different way to balance, and it give people confidence back, be able to live
Yes.
their life. Wonderful. So it, so you know, I was saying to Jim before we started this, I was spotting his videos online really quite some time ago, just watching some of the things that he was doing from Dr. Pan, someone we both learned under. So that was always
Yeah.
fascinating. Um, is there anything you'd like to close with, Bob? Anything you'd like to particularly mention?
Not at the top of my head. Just thank you for giving me the chance to be here and talk and catch up and
Ah,
talk about acupuncture and Chinese medicine.
it's been a pleasure. And so I think people in the UK seem to know an awful lot of people in Australia. So I want to um, if you just run through for us again where you are and how to contact you, and I'll put some details uh, in the text for the video. That'd be really
Sure.
great to hear, please.
Sure. I am located in Brisbane, Australia, Queensland. The clinic address is artofacupuncture.com.au. So you can, and there's links to Instagram off the website as well and other social media as well.
That's great. And Bob also has a YouTube channel, so do check it out. So very nice talking to you, Bob, and I'm
Great.
sure we'll do it again. All the best.
Great. Thanks, Mark.